So to continue then, there's a lot we've learned from the interviews about this patch. And it'll be interesting to go over. So let's zoom past that. I mean, here's the rough bit. The old concept art looking pretty great. Reality for these not really looking as great as the concept art, unfortunately. But so we've got all these along with artist descriptions. It's beautiful work. I mean, I love these creatures. These are gorgeous.
Yeah. The way I say it, okay, well, obviously the problem is that some of the execution boils down to it is actually World of Warcraft execution in a way. So, obviously something created as a 3D model for World of Warcraft would look out of place in another game. But that concept art created in any other game would look perfectly fine. That's kind of the thing here, where it is, it's fine.
Tier sets, here they are. So, some faring better than others in the concept art to sort of 3D transition.
This is awful because I almost wish we hadn't shown this. I'd almost rather have played a game. Can you guess which is which?
I suppose the coloring does make that a bit tricky. I think I can get most of them. Now I got Warrior and Paladin wrong.
Yeah.
I thought that this one was Paladin, but I mean, hey, there you go. Yeah. So we got those. We got these boys. What do you think of your main?
So I like the Paladin set enough, but it's just, I don't know. I like it as a bit of armor. Would it replace anything I already have? Absolutely not.
I'm basically the same.
I think the mail gear actually looks pretty good, but then I just think mail gear in this game looks horrible most of the time. So
mail gear is generally weaker. I think plate and cloth generally fare great, and there's a few really nice standouts in leather. But so there you go. There's the sets. I suppose Death Knight's a bit easier to get because we get a skull to help us out.
Yeah.
So look, there's that. They say this is a funny one. Tier sets have been something we wanted to revisit since like 2 BlizzCons ago, and the community's been asking for it.
There's a little thinking face from Dakor.
So these are like Dakor's little thinking boxes. They're very fun. Yeah. So why didn't you revisit them sooner? What stopped you from revisiting them? You actively made the decision to steer away from them, and now you're returning to them. Is it almost because all of your borrowed power systems have failed? And we have to go back to the original one, tier sets. Is that it? People are just, well, finally we've got them anyway. We've got them.
Yeah.
So
I figured out one thing. I mean, this might be obvious to people, but I think I understand now why, like, what the artists might need to hear. Because if you're an artist, right, you're going to understand more than the layperson, more than the average player, how art actually works on a deep level. And this is something I was actually talking with Ethan about a while ago. But there's something about
Ethan, like on the game team.
Yeah, Ethan, Ethan, who works on the game team as an environment artist. I was talking about how, as an artist, people can see your work and go, "Oh, that's cool," but the artist and other artists will be able to look at it and see all of the depth in the art, understand how it's made, and other people will just look and say, "Oh, cool thing. I see cool pictures and pretty shapes and colors." So, the artists probably, when they're making these, completely understand all of the intricacies. They'll look at the Paladin set and go, "Well, no. Here's why this is the Paladin set versus the Warrior set." And they'll reference shape, they'll reference subtleties. Same with the difference between Mage and Warlock. They'll go, "Well, this is obviously here. Mage and Priest, obviously, it's the depth, it's the subtleties." But that'll be artists sitting in a room going, "Oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. Of course, I can identify this as the Paladin set at a glance because those are the shapes I associate with the Paladin."
Yeah.
But for someone who isn't trained in art, they're not going to look for, the subtleties of shapes. They're not going to know the language of like how shapes and different colors actually, very subtly work. They'll just be like, "Oh, big shiny hammer. Sweet, that's a Paladin."
Yeah, like another handy example, my shower is running from hot to cold at the minute. Yeah. I go and I'm like, water cold, water hot, water cold. My boiler broke. Me sad. And then I research a bit. I'm like, oh, okay, so the water pressure's probably low and I have to do all these things. And, then I have an actual understanding of it instead of the surface level, me like, me don't like. Which, yes, 'cause that can sometimes lead to, like, if it's not clear enough to the person who ends up viewing the thing, it can
Yeah.
be a little bit lost in translation.
Yeah, so that's basically what I was talking to Ethan about, how like an artist might get frustrated that other people don't see the depth in their work and just see the surface level stuff. But if you're making it for someone else, then the surface level stuff's going to be the, you want to put as much depth in to make it actually good, but you also have to keep in mind that people will look at it without the understanding you have.
Yeah,
They'll go, oh well, that's well, the Warlock set, why is it not purple and all demony?
I think that's why like a lot of very timeless designs have very big, simple shapes.
Yeah.
Sort of big, simple, small color palettes. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, or the idea of, obviously, we can understand how that set for the rogue looks roguey because it's sharp, it's pointy, it's generally lithe. Obviously, they show it on a female body type, so that's going to work better. But rather than, it's pointy, it's sharp, it's got the face covering, which conceals your face, which is what a rogue would want. All that stuff's fairly, clear enough. But then you look at the Antorus rogue set, and I'm pretty sure there's not a person in the world who hasn't played a fantasy game or who has played a fantasy game wouldn't go, that's a rogue set.
I would almost roll a rogue to get that set.
People did.
I really should. It's a beautiful set.
Yep, people did.
I think whenever people think of class fantasy, then that's what they're thinking about more than this raid tier applied to this class. And that's an interesting thing because this is a whole discussion Blizzard have had. Mm-hmm. Any tier 11 hunters in chat? It's tier 11. Was that? Tier 10. What tier was Ice Crown Citadel? It was the very start of Cataclysm where hunters got the weird Murloc bone gear, and we were all very confused at what we just got. But that was the thing where they really tried to infuse the raid tier into the set, like mega hard. And then there's sometimes in, say, Legion, where they went, actually, no, we're going to go 100% class fantasy, maybe a bit less.
Yeah.
Bringing the raid tier in. And that's an interesting, just direction, that they've... it makes sense to change about that direction so that things feel fresh, of course. But yeah, anyway, so not maybe the greatest showing. So look, for me, I'll live. The thing I'm actually happy about, though, is that the tier sets are coming back. And they mentioned, them being back in a way where they're designed to subtly, change your rotation, influence how you play. Yeah. And I think in a world where we're so used to, the conduits and all of those things in our borrowed power, like, a thing you have to fill up to get a few more % of a thing. Just the idea of like, oh, I got my 2 set and now my whatever does something different and that changes how I play a little bit. That's really exciting. I'm now in this patch thinking, okay, how will my hunter play differently? And the domination shard system and empowered conduits didn't do that. This one does. So to me as a player, that's more exciting.
Yeah, I just hope and this is a thing that I think a lot of the gameplay designers in the World of Warcraft team could accidentally fall into, especially if they've come from more balancey stuff into design. Then hopefully they understand that it's not just about it changing in rotation, but it feeling like a nice bonus. Like you could do something that you couldn't before, or something like that, like fit an extra ability into a cooldown window, or something along those lines. Or, something like, I don't know, Hammer of Wrath cleaves to 3 targets, maybe. Something like that would feel, and maybe it only generates 1 extra holy power. But that's the kind of thing as a pal, and I'd be like, fucking yeah, give me that. I'll go work for that. But if it's like, now I prioritize Crusader Strike over Blade of Justice, that would make me fall asleep. So you kind of get the distinction there.
I totally get you. That is true, and I mean, that's what all good tier sets do, really. So, other things, though, and I think this is good news for loads of people. Maybe iffy news for some of the big raiders.
Maybe.
But I think for a lot of people, it is good news. Tier sets will be dropped in the raid. There'll also be a choice in the Great Vault for raid, PvP, and Mythic Plus. Now, there's a bit of a downside here because it is the Bing Bing Wahoo box. Who knows what you're going to get. And for some raiders, they'll be like, okay, so I've got to do all of the bosses that I can on the hardest difficulty, and then I have to do 10 Mythic Pluses. And not every raider is going to want to go and do 10 Mythic Pluses. So a bunch of raiders are going to feel like they really need to do that. And then vice versa. And this could be less of an issue because maybe in Mythic Plus, it's like groups of 5. So they maybe won't always have all the people to then go and raid. So maybe raiding will be an option for them. But of course, if you're a Mythic Pluser and that's the thing you enjoy, and you don't enjoy raids that much, you feel like you gotta go and do all the raids just to, unlock the chance of a thing in the box. I mean, that's kind of, that's a little bit funky, I think. That's not something people have... I think the idea of I have to run a Mythic Plus 15, X amount of times per week, to be optimal for raid. It's that weird thing where, you play more of the game, you get more rewards, makes sense. Yeah. But I think it's because so much of it is put in a random thing, and you're just trying to get more random choices that ends up feeling a bit iffy, versus some of those deterministic systems that I would say almost certainly are less immediately engaging to people, and you could argue in some ways are a bit more boring, but it's then that thing we talked about when we talked about the over-justification effect, where, yeah, the unexpected reward is more exciting, but what happens if the unexpected reward then becomes expected? Yeah. Then do you actually have many or most of the downsides of a deterministic system, but then you add on top of that all of the downsides of a more random reward?
Yeah. It starts to feel more like a deterministic system that just fails half the time, as opposed to a system that gives you a bonus half the time. I think that's the very, very, very deepest fundamental level is just, I'm doing this for this, but I'm not getting it. And that's the problem. Like,
yeah. So it's interesting stuff. It's interesting stuff. Now, there is something here that's really good, and I really want to commend the team in this. I want to commend Morgan Day for talking about this in a pretty honest public way as well. So, good on you, Morgan. Good on you, WoW team. This is definitely what we want to see. So I'm very happy about this. They have a new system in this patch called the Forge of Creation. And this will allow you to craft tier set pieces by combining a new currency with an item that you can earn from PvP or Mythic Plus dungeons. And I believe this quote's from Morgan, where he says, this is supposed to work like bad luck protection, or again, for people wanting to make new characters, or as a catch-up, basically catch-up method, if you've started late. So I imagine, who knows what the acquisition rate for the currency will be, but there's this idea where basically, via doing what you do, you'll probably get some form of token, and with those tokens, I think you get those tokens and a piece of gear. You put them together at like a vendor or something, or forge, whatever, and you get your set piece. So this is a deterministic way for you to over time earn your set piece. This means that, look, I remember in Wrath of the Lich King, one of the things you'd be doing with your badges is you're getting tier. Because you could get the two piece, and you might be able to do something similar here, and I think that could feel quite good, give you a little thing to work towards. And then if this Forge of Creation, well, if you don't need the tier, they can put some other things on that vendor, which could be useful to your character or to your alts. Yeah, there's a lot of potential in this system, I think. So thumbs up to that. I think somewhere else in an interview, they basically mentioned that this is the sort of thing they end up adding after the fact a lot of the time, but they've been listening to feedback and they're adding it now at the start.
Yeah, it's actually the quotes there. We normally might have patched this in much later in the game, but we wanted to introduce these systems earlier to give players a clearer roadmap, which is clearer roadmap. Obviously, roadmap nowadays, you're like, roadmap, fuck off, live service, but roadmap is in determinism. You can plan for your gear. That's literally new. Literally a new concept to World of Warcraft as of late, planning for gear.
People are talking about random piece. I doubt it'll be random because you actually put a piece of gear and the token in, so I imagine the set pieces you get is going to be based on the piece of gear that you put in.
Yeah, I imagine it's something along the lines of you get a shoulder from your Great Vault. It's not the tier shoulder, but it's a tier item level. Go and trade some currency for it.
Yeah.
Which is, so is it better than getting a token? No. Is it, ultimately the same thing a little bit? Yeah. But obviously there's a point where we're asking for tokens for everything, and that's maybe too far.
So I think this is good. We need to see how it's implemented in game, but I definitely want to say thumbs up, Blizzard. I am happy you've done this. This just shows that there's some parts of the player experience of the gearing process that they understand a bit better. It shows that they are, it just shows they're listening and they're trying to understand. Yep. And I know to a lot of people that's not going to ring true, but this is good. We keep on saying whenever they, release a 0.5 patch that makes the game so much better, why didn't you do this at launch? And rightly so. And now that they're doing it at launch, what we have to do is we have to say, good job, thank you for listening, we're very happy that you've done this, and we support you for doing so. Because if we don't do that, then we're just like, screw you for not doing that. and then they do the thing you want, and then you don't say thanks. I mean, no, this is good. Now we need to see if it's actually good in game.
Yeah.
Obviously, big obvious. We need to see if it's good in game. But look, if from this point forth, they always have the system like this, the thing that makes the basic design of the patch actually kind of work and make sense. If they always have that from the start of the patch, that'll be a good thing for WoW's future. So we need to hold them to that. But look, if we don't encourage the good things when they come around, it's gonna be a rumbly time, everyone. So, and if we just have to accept that. So here's the thing. Talking about apologies there. I mean, as an example, I've just went through media training. So I know the media training these guys, go with, like, as a part of, at some point I'll probably end up talking to press about the game. And, most developers, every developer with a publisher will have a bit of media training. And it's not some weird thing where they're all like, oh, don't you do this, don't you do that. It's really not like that. It's actually what it was a mock interview where, it was great. I actually really enjoyed the media training because some of the more hard questions that maybe I'll get from the press were at me, and I'm like, okay, well, I have to now answer this question, and it was a really, really useful thing. So that's kind of like what I guess maybe indie media training is about. Certainly, it's not a thing where I had a lot of talking points, so maybe they have some more talking points, but maybe just from a broad thing, they're not really allowed to talk up that they messed up or admit those mistakes. So the best that they can do is just promote the good thing. Maybe that's what their media training is like. So if we're going to take in that context, we at least have to say the good thing is good. That is, if it's good, PTR will tell us that. So, but that's the thing. We can talk about this in a pretty chill way because it's not like you're pre-ordering the patch and you can put money down on it now. So, that's why I'm happy enough to say that something's good in principle at this stage, because it's not like I'd be, encouraging somebody to pre-order a thing, right? So they get burnt.